data curators hangout, which we're gonna get a chance just to introduce what it is and talk through if people, I imagine, we're gonna get a chance just to introduce what it is and talk through if people, I imagine some of you are interested, and also if anyone's being interested in being like the managing curator. I'm gonna go round left to right on my screen and just ask folks to either live, because we have a limit of 10 broadcasting this so that other people can like watch it either live because we have a limit of 10 people, or afterwards, as it will provide a good introduction. And I'm also gonna, while I'm going across, I'm just gonna put up a Google Doc so that we have a Google Doc we can all share, we can all get access to. Okay, so my screen, Eduardo, you're the leftmost person. Would you mind just taking 10 seconds or 15 seconds to say your name and why you're, what you're interested in terms of this call particularly?
Current ambassador for Ecuador, and also working with the topic about the call, and I thought it was interesting, and I'd like to know more about it. It's interesting, and I'd like to know more about.
So next on my screen, and I know it's a bit random for you, is going to be, up next is Peter.
My name is Peter Kittis, and my background is in my background is in scale infrastructure management, but I more recently got into web development and open data. I've co-organized a couple civic hackathons, and having easy access to data either made or crippled those efforts. And so that's something that's kind of acute for me and something that I'd like to help contribute to make a bit better in working with less sophisticated social environmental mission-based organizations here around Seattle. Sophisticated social environmental mission-based organizations here around Seattle. They spin their gears for quite a long time with that stuff.
On mute. Next up is Jan. Jan, are you with us? Can you hear us? Jan, you're muted if you're trying to speak. Ah, Jan. Jan.
I had to reconnect. Okay. So yeah, so I'm Yanael. I'm originally from France, but now based in Belgium, and I work as a postdoc researcher at the University of Brussels, and a project related to bioinformatics. Got a background in machine learning, and I'm more and more interested in open data initiatives. Open data initiatives January, actually, and I also started looking at how creating data sets, and prepared one so far, and well, looking forward to know more about your activities and participating.
Thank you for joining, and some other people may be come along as we go along. I'm just trying to make sure I've got enough light here. It's getting dark where I am in Berlin. Okay, so what I'm going to do right at the beginning is I just want to check in with you. How many of you actually in your call for core data curators, or because I don't want to just to check in, did any of you sign up? And you did. Great. Okay. And have you? And so great. Everyone, if it's okay, I'm going to give you kind of a 5-minute kind of intro because obviously a couple of you have not, and it might be useful to go through anyway. So I'm actually going to try and I don't know how this does this. Am I allowed to get a separate? No, that doesn't. It's kind of annoying that the with the Hangout in it doesn't allow me to open tabs in it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some screen share. Is there anyone who'd be up for that?
Sure, I'll do that. Sure, I'll do that. Is Peter?
That would be amazing. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay. Wonderful. So what I'm going to do here is let me just bring up the page. So first here, take you on a screen share. Let's see if screen share, and I think I want entire screen, I think. Let's share it. Okay. Great. Oh, wow. I'm getting incredible. The infinite zoom. Okay. Can you guys see my screen now? Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. So I'm just going to start very quickly, which is the goal, the frictionless data project as a whole. So probably you guys have, okay, wonderful. So the basic point I have for, you know, we at Open Knowledge have had a decade, more than a decade of working with data, and always in a way our goal has been to make it easier for people to share data very quickly, very easily, and often openly. To be clear though, actually the frictionless data applies whether you're doing open data or not, and openly. To be clear though, actually the frictionless data applies whether you're doing open data or not doing open data. It's about a bunch of standards and approaches and tools that will just make it easier to get data from the publisher to the consumer. They might even be the same person, by the way. Sometimes it might be, in that sense, publisher one tool that you're using and you want to put it into another tool that you're using. And we've kind of, in a way, these standards reflect the refinements the simpler things get rather than the more complex. So the real aim is this really boils things down to the essence, and at the heart of that are these principles of focus. Like this frictionless data, particularly the frictionless data concept is quite large, but the particular proposals or standards and approach here is really focused. The particular proposals or standards and approach is really focused, at least initially, right, of data packages, which are a simple wrapper for shipping data. And this concept of data packages, which are a simple wrapper for shipping data around. They're like, and also this particular thing of tabular data package. So data package on its own has a bit of a limited use. It's useful, but if you don't know what's inside, if you don't know the structure of the data, it's quite difficult to import it or export it from given tools, right? It's useful just to have any kind of wrapper for data to ship around because you can then do useful and easy things, right? Any kind of wrapper for data to ship around because you can then do useful and easy things. But it's really like when you have it as being tabular or geodata or whatever. And so this data package is this really key concept, and it's a tiny wrapper around any kind of data you have. And a tabular data package is a data package where all the data is tabular, and in particular is a CSV. I'll zoom again on the screen share. Okay, so that's the heart of it. So there's several parts of this project. If you actually look at the kind of vision, there's building standards, there's doing tooling integration, and there's kind of community work. But one particular part of this as well is, if you go back to this, so we're working, but one particular part of this as well is, if you go back to this, so we're working on all three of those. That's in the bigger frictionless data project. And by the way, there, and it's really easy to dive in. People are generally a voluntary effort at the moment. We've had a little bit of resourcing here. Very easy to get involved. You know, you can pick your bit. People have been contributing tools and all kinds of other stuff. Your favorite tool and write an adapter for it will utilize data packages. And for example, someone a very simple integration for Microsoft SQL Server to consume data packages really quickly, like with one click. Now, the other part is really quickly, like with one click. Ecosystem. If you look at this diagram here, the idea is that producers you adapt their tools in a very simple way so they can produce data packages, and particularly tabular data packages, and then you have consumers adapt their tools. So the idea would be, you know, I don't know, you have data in Postgres or MySQL, and now you can just one-click publish a data package, and someone working in Excel can then just import that data package, or you can just one-click publish a data package, and someone working in Excel can then just import that data package or part of it really easily. But obviously you have a chicken and egg. You know, if they have got no data package to consume, they're not going to be very interested. And this then leads us to the core data set. We'll be very interested. And this then leads us to the core data sets idea. And this has two parts. On the one hand, it's this like bootstrapping ecosystem with a bunch of standard data that is data packaged. And on the other hand, it has this kind of aspect of the Debian is that if you in fact go to the presentation maybe here, it's best just to walk through it, which is there's a lot of key data sets, that core data sets, you know, so you can think in the way that Debian, I don't know if does everyone here know what Debian was? Anyone not know, because it's kind of a bit geeky. But basically There's a bunch of data that everyone probably often uses. Not everyone uses every data. There's a bunch of data that everyone probably often uses. Not everyone uses every data set, but people constantly want country codes. If you've ever built a web app, at some point you might want to have country codes like those 2-digit ISO codes, or you might want a list of currencies, or you might want inflation. And so there's this kind of core, maybe 1,000, 2,000 data sets that a lot of people want. So important, commonly used. And if we could just get them set up, or even if they're in the World Bank data set, we end up scraping them from somewhere on the web, not curate necessarily, structured in data series. They're often not exactly form, and they're not curate necessarily, structured in a standard way. Curate them. We're not going to go and get any data. We're not create data. But we're going to go and curate it in a really standardized. We don't get any data. We're not going to easy to use way. And it's painful, as it says in the slide deck here. It's painful to get key data reliably. And it's painful, as it says in the slide deck here, it's painful to get key data reliably in a form that's easy to use. The data exists, mostly here we're talking about, and so that's this aim, which is to clean, it's reliable, it's up to date, it's open, it's free to use, standard structure, and it means that you can just get it into your project. And we're going to also version most of the data using Git. So it's CSV, and we can do that, and version most of the data using Git. So it's CSV, and we can do that. So particularly as data packages. So there was an announcement earlier in January about kind of doing this, and quite a few people have kind of started coming and doing this now. So maybe to walk through a little bit how this actually works. So what we have is it really starts from this thing called the registry. So if I go to the registry, it's actually an issue tracker on GitHub. And what we have here is a list of suggestions or data sets in progress. So anyone can come and just suggest a data set. Oh, I'm losing my, I'm going to get the infinite thing. For example, you can, someone here is, in fact, I think this was me, GIP data set. Someone has suggested top-level domain names. You can suggest data sets that should become core data sets and should be packaged up. And then what happens is someone looks at them, or someone comes and chats, that's the managing curator or whoever, and says, yes, let's go ahead, that sounds like a good idea. So for example, this gentleman has suggested the root top-level domain names and a quick guide. And in fact, this person has already gone and done it, and what we now need is someone to review it. So this is a great example. The person has already gone and done it, and what we now need is someone to review it. So this is a great example. The person suggested it, we said, go do it. What they did was they read the guide here, which talks about how this process works, and how you go here and you go to publish data, and you'd want to go, hey, I want to publish tabular data, and then you read this quite simple set of instructions, really this long. You create a directory, you put data in it, you create your CSV files, you add a data package.json, which is very easy to do, and then you put your data package online, which is there are instructions for. So generally we suggest putting it on GitHub, so it would be here, and we should probably probably the structure for that. So going back here, what's going on now is this: we're waiting for someone, and this is where I ask for a managing curator. If you want to become a managing curator, what you do at this moment is step in, we'd open his data package here, and we'd have a look. Does this look good? So does the CSV look good? Yes, it does. It does look pretty good. And we'd go, okay, does the data package JSON look good? And we'd go, okay, does the data package JSON look good? There's actually, you go to validate, and what we could actually do here actually is we could do, oh, we've gone too far there, one too far. We'd go here, and you actually paste this in and check that he's got a valid data, and we go valid. So this is interesting. So what's being told actually here is his name is invalid. If we look at the data package JSON, you see that he's got a space at the end of it there, which is making it invalid. So okay, I want to maybe have a little more questions, but to explain, that's, going back, the workflow would be you go to the registry. One thing people can do, by the way, before you even data package the registry, anything, you can just say, hey, this would be a great data set to data package. And you can, there are quite a few in this list. There's about 52 open data sets. that people would like help packaging. Some of them need just reviewing, etc. Some of them are geographic, some of them are tabular, some of them are time series data, some of them are just reference data, and any of those is valid. So yeah, so you kind of go, yeah, and we're making good progress. So this is this is how it works and how you can come and get involved, and that's why I hope you guys are here today. Okay, let me turn on screen sharing. I'm back. Getting darker here. I'm waiting to turn the light on. That's better. Yeah, so does anyone have any questions from that presentation? Oh.
This does.
Maybe not. I'm not. Okay, we'll just go to Peter. Okay, we'll just go to
already, but if you've got a data set that, yeah, what you talked about already, but if you've got a data set that would be, why should you go after that? License right now, it's obvious we should go after that. Maybe what we might consider core, but they're well organized on other sites. Consider core, but they're well organized on other sites. What's your approach to packaging them maybe slightly differently and including them at the GitHub location versus just leaving them where they are and it's kind of
data package it, right? So if people have data package it, right? So if people have got stuff that you can persuade them to add a data package to, it doesn't have to be in the datasets GitHub repo. There's no requirement for core, particularly for example, some large files may live elsewhere, they might not live in Git if they were big data sets. So there's no requirement to like move it under the control. But in my view, it's a bit like Debian and Firefox, right? Firefox produce Firefox, but Debian take the Firefox data and they still curate it at Debian's repos. So my general view is that yes, we would copy and maintain, even if it's being maintained upstream. That's great. I mean, it's just like Debian, right? Debian take Firefox nightlies or whatever, and they take care of them and they make sure they're high. Like they take them and they make sure that they are, that they're all working and they're packaged in a Debian way. So that's generally my view, is even from upstream we take. Generally, I'd want to automate that and just be clear, like Debian, we really credit, everything should be very clearly sourced. You should state the source of stuff, you should credit the source. But it's like being a curator rather than a creator. We're not claiming these are our data. I can tell you now, I've got to find it now, I just lost it. But basically, there's already some work on that, which needs if you want to add it to the registry, basically then point you to this. But please add it to the registry so we have a tracker for it, and then I'll point you to this licenses. There is already kind of a database, some work in progress that you might really like. That's something that interests you. There's like, bam, there's some work, there's something you can really contribute to there, and I think that's a really useful database as well.
In the EU?
I'm getting into our last 10 minutes. We don't have to run all the way to time. Does anyone else have any kind of questions or thoughts? And the other question I just have is, whoever's scribing, would it be possible just to write down if people have offered, or could maybe if you've made an offer, and it doesn't matter which you to view, but which is also I can put in our Google Doc, like the page, the roadmap page, which I just put in the Google Doc. At the bottom, it does say, I would like to package this data set in the next week or so. No, it's actually in the Core Data Creators Guide now. Actually, it's at the bottom of the Core Data Creators Guide, I think. The assessment criteria, particularly remember and connect it with you. Link. It's at the bottom of here, and it says, yeah, it says, if I'm reading it correctly, and I helped write it, so I should know, quality, relevance and importance, ongoing support, and openness. Now, the other thing I would say is actually size. So packaging, saying here's a data package which is the whole of the UK, a country's census data, I don't think would be very useful. It would be kind of like, it would be much more useful to say here's the GDP data, and to think about what data sets inside the census are particularly valuable. Now, it might be one day you have all of it packaged, but I would go that route of trying to think of individual, because also think about users. Users generally don't want the whole of the census. A given user does not want to download the entire of the census most of the time. Like when they want to install this particular thing, and so I would go that route. But I think it's perfectly useful. I mean, I think certainly the main obviously justifiable as core data.
To look at what you have already on the list.
Okay.
I have to first take a look at that, and then I'll probably drop a mail in the discussion forum or to you.
Okay. You can even look now if you want. Or do you want to take a bit of time? Do you have the link to the registry? Do you know where it is, by the way?
I have. If you have sent it across, it would be easy if you drop a link here.
Yeah. Well, just a sec. Did you see in the
Yes.
you lost it because you disconnected?
I have then.
So if you have the link, particularly to the Google Doc, that has a link to
that format, so which is simple and easy to use. So that, as I said, the idea here is to bring examples of data sets in that format, so that other people and institutions would use it afterwards. Am I right, or?
Yeah, no. In fact, so more generally, easy. I might try and tag. If you look through the registry general, in fact, I think I think data packages and the frictionless data stuff and tabular data is great for lots of institutions. I mean, I personally think that it's kind of, for me and others who've worked on it, it's kind of culmination of, like, as I said, more than 10 years of thinking about just trying to get something down to the absolute minimum essence that people can adopt, because that's always your challenge, getting anyone to use anything. And also on consumers, often the other aspect is I think people often then think about formats for publication that are hard to use for consumers. They have some elaborate XML format that's quite painful to consume. So yeah, I know that a lot of statistics. I've talked to a couple of statistical agencies. I would really, researchers. I think this works in a whole bunch of areas, and I think it's really lightweight and fun. Fun. It's actually fun to use. It's kind of like easy to use. So yeah, I would, and I use it for a bunch of stuff. So yeah, good point. So yeah, does anyone else have any other questions?
Well, I think it's I'm still wondering the same thing that Young I asked, data package, because I'm looking right now at the GitHub datasets registry, and there are things that are really
one other person who would be interested in this project. They might not. By interested, I don't mean they definitely
cannot be understood how that is a core data set. So I'm thinking how to avoid making this just like add any data set that you want and focus on the beginning on the ones that really are going to matter to the large audience. So I'm wondering, I'm not sure how that could
doing that, like just telling one other person about it and seeing whether they're interested.
But there are others that, for example, natural gas price that needs to be updated very frequently to be relevant.
More on the
project here around me, so yeah.
Great. And if you people need anything, like, I think there's good materials you can just forward now, and there's also a slide deck, so that's great. And if people want any intro information, is there anyone else who'd like to tell? And it's even you came and suggested things, and people, like, we had too many suggestions, right? And people just had too much data they were packaging. And I'd love to have that problem right now, that there were just too many suggestions and too many people packaging data sets. And I had to say to them, no, you've got to stop, right? So my thing is, we don't worry about something that hasn't happened yet. My suggestion would be just to go for it, like unless you're worried that somehow it would dilute the project in some way if people got confused. The second is, I think we can make a judgment. So my sense is that, for example, there are locally specific data sets, for example, GDP, which is per country, or other. There may be, you could have a world GDP data set, but often you might have a country one. My sense is that there are a few reference data sets that you can imagine occurring for many countries. For example, geodata. Do next, and what you got from the call, or any suggestions you have, and just I'm going to go in a different order this time. I'm going to start with Jan and go right to left on my screen. For example, gas prices. If you're interested in economic statistics, and so that's a great, but it's a great point. But I would say don't worry about it too much. Go for it. We should go for it, and when it becomes a problem, we can worry about it. And I think the other thing is go for it in terms of proposing things, because by discussing them in the thread, we can gradually, if we need to refine the criteria, we can do. Now, on your second point, data sets that update, I think absolutely we need to have data sets that are updated regularly. I think that's one of the things, and that's it's like a Debian packager. We need someone, as you said, some data sets we package them once and they're not going to change for a decade. But some stuff we're changing maybe every day. So, for example, I'll just show you one data set which is very like that, which actually I was the original packager for. Let me just share my screen quickly. I've got to come back. Here we are. Yeah, I'm back. Screen. Now going to get infinite zoom again. But this data set, for example, I don't know if people know it, but the VIX, I'm going to move this on to it's a very widely watched indices of kind of financial volatility and kind of, it's called the fear index. And this is published daily.
GeoJSON generator, so I'm going to try to go after some more geospatial data sets to solidify that knowledge. Maybe I can, with fresh set of novice eyes, round trip it with the instructions that are on the site. If I see anything to kind of help people get on board that are less experienced, I'll just try to contribute those to the documentation.
That's awesome, and you can just hit edit on the documentation, submit requests. That is amazing, and there are several geodata sets that need people either to review or do. Okay, Maruf, any thoughts you have to leave us with? Keep updating it every couple of days at the moment. Okay, welcome to the new joiners. Do you want to introduce yourselves, if you can? Deek and Maruf.
Hi, I'm from Syria, but I'm living in Slovakia now. I don't know much about the project.
Sure. It's around.
He told me.
Yeah, right. So it's very late. So thanks everyone. I'm going to wrap on time, and I will run another one of this. Has really inspired me. So thank you for your time and energy. And I really look forward to seeing you, interact with you guys on the issue tracker and elsewhere, and on the forum. Just open a topic, any question you have, just open a topic and someone will respond. So in the middle of things. And so welcome, thank you so much for joining, it's awesome.
Thank you too. Thank you.
From India. Just had a meetup on an open data community that I was talking about. I'm just back from that. Hope to be active in the open data project that School of Data is doing. As Sadiq mentioned, even I am quite new to the activities that the group is doing, but I hope to catch up and then be active.
This call overall can run for an hour. Strictly I was trying to keep the intro and stuff to about half an hour, and then take this time for people. Either we can have it'd be great just to have more questions, or if there are people who want to be taken through, particularly who want to become a data curator. And by the way, there's not a huge commitment. You can try it out. You can also, it's great if you sign up, by the way, through the form. I'll just drop to someone who's got, I think, Jan, you actually signed up the OK Google Doc so that people have it. So if you're interested, to just kind of give context for a couple of you who've arrived, the core data kind of project is about taking really important high-value data sets. It might be like the world GDP or the US GDP or Indian GDP, or it might be the list of all the country codes, and making sure it's really curated. That's the shared meeting doc. And could you drop the link into the original labs blog post where people could sign up? There was the form in it that people could sign up.
I'm not sure which one you asked.
Yeah, sorry. I'll drop it in a moment. So let's just keep going. You can find it. It's actually at the bottom of the core data curators, at the bottom of the main page on the website, on Fictionist Data website, you can find it on the one which is about core data sets. But so the point here is that basically all it takes to start curating these data sets, so what we want to do is get them together and curate them, make them standard way as data packages, and just keep them up to date and make them available. And also you can become famous this way. I'm going to joke, but for example, we curate the S&P. One of the ones that's really popular is we can create, if people know what the S&P 500 is, it's like a very widely used stock index in the United States. And we've been curating a data set about that, of like the components of the S&P now for like a year and a half. And it's now like, it gets a lot of hits. I think it's now like #1 almost on Google PageRank for looking that data set up. And for example, I think we're now about #5 for country codes. If you Google like country codes, CSV, or searches for people to get this data quickly and effectively, that would be a